This story begins in a dim operating theater. Two shady surgeons are running experiments. They are working on two living people who appear severely injured. The surgeons inject both subjects with a strange green liquid. Soon, the male subject begins to suffer. Blood pours from every opening in his body. Eventually, whatever the surgeons injected proves too much. Both test subjects die right there. One surgeon finally gives up on the research. He realizes that, after sacrificing so many, all that awaits them is failure. He knew from the start that this research had no future. Before leaving, he makes it clear he won't be part of it anymore. Dr. Shin seems to be the only one who believes their efforts weren't useless. As far as he's concerned, the test subjects were always supposed to die soon. So, it doesn't matter if they died a day early. They contributed to the greater good of humanity. Shin then tells his junior to leave the operating theater. He plans to take care of the bodies himself. The junior leaves quietly, without a word. Shin, meanwhile, is still fixated on the belief that this research will succeed. He's certain the only thing holding it back is the lack of proper test subjects. He knows, without a doubt, that the right subject is still out there. Now, let's shift to the main hero of our story. His name is Kong Ywin, and his friend is Jin Minyoung. These two work at a funeral home, taking care of the dead. After joking around and eating, they decide to head to the hospital to claim some bodies. Once they arrive, Ywin shows his business card to the attendant at the counter. He introduces himself as Kong Ywin from Hanwol Funeral Services. He says he received a call about patients who passed away early that morning. His friend, Hyung, joins him after a quick bathroom break. Soon, they find themselves in the operating theater. The bodies they are there to claim happen to be the same ones the surgeons were experimenting on. Hyung confirms that the victims appear to be a father and daughter. The report states they died in a car accident. But one thing doesn't make sense to Ywin. While the father's body is badly damaged, the girl's is almost spotless. Aside from a wound on her arm, there are no signs of any surgeries. His friend reminds him they're not forensic experts. They should stop worrying about things they shouldn't and focus on claiming the bodies. Ywin decides to take a look inside the girl's mouth. As he does, he suddenly cuts his finger on her broken tooth. Anyway, the next step is to move the bodies. As they start moving the father's body, first, Ywin suddenly notices something. The wound on the girl's hand has disappeared. Of course, this shocks him like nothing else. He points out the healed wound to his friend. But before they can discuss it further, Ywin is struck by a sharp, stinging pain that causes him to collapse. His friend grows worried and rushes over to support him. Meanwhile, Ywin's condition only worsens. He's suddenly hit with immense and unbearable pain that makes him scream at the top of his lungs. It seems some infection has entered his bloodstream through the cut from the girl's broken tooth. His heart feels like it's going to explode, and his entire body is so hot that it feels like he's being burned alive. He can sense he's dying. If this pain keeps up, eventually he loses consciousness, leaving his worried friend crying like a child. Meanwhile, the girl begins to twitch and move. A while later, Ywin opens his eyes. He has no idea what's going on. He notices the so-called dead girl banging her head against the door. Naturally, Ywin is terrified to see the dead girl on her feet. As if that's not horrifying enough, he notices his friend's mangled, bloody body on the ground. Ywin recoils in fear, panic seizing his heart and mind. For some reason, his hands are covered in blood as well. He then notices the girl looking at him, and they lock eyes for a moment. But she just twirls around and continues her creepy head banging. After staring at his friend's dead body, Ywin looks back at his blood-stained hands. The sweet aroma of the blood filling the room is oddly enticing. The overwhelming stench of blood fills his nostrils, spreading across his tongue. The scene before him feels twisted and surreal. Suddenly, Ywin notices his supposed dead friend groaning. Seeing this, he makes a desperate effort to wake him up, but there's no response. His friend seems to be deep in unconsciousness. Ywin decides to take him with him, believing he might survive if he gets him the treatment he needs. It looks like the entire hospital is in shambles. Everywhere is stained with blood, and there's no one in sight. We then see only an old man crying in the corner, while a girl lies dead nearby. The old man's face is glistening with sweat from the tension consuming his mind. He's sure that no one is coming to save them, which means the world outside this hospital is beyond saving now. He curses whoever might have caused this madness. Suddenly, he notices the secretary flinching, so he starts running out of the room, certain that if he stays he'll die an unwanted death. Grabbing a golf club, he steels himself and ventures out of the room to leave the hospital for good. We cut back to the operating room. Ywin has finished putting his friend on a stretcher and is ready to take him to get treated. But Ywin feels weak and sluggish. His stomach hurts, as if his insides are twisting. The pain feels similar to the sensation of starvation, but this doesn't make sense. He had literally eaten lunch before coming to the hospital, so it hasn't been that long since his last meal. However, we all know that the starvation he's feeling isn't for food, it's probably for blood. Regardless, he steels himself and starts pushing his friend's stretcher. As he opens the door and steps outside, he comes across the scared old man holding a golf club. The old man is a blessing for Ywin. He quickly shouts for help, asking the doctor to treat his injured friend. Just then, that headbanging zombie girl zips past Ywin and runs straight toward the old man, like a hungry and bloodthirsty monster. As the old man recoils in fear, more zombies emerge from another room and begin feasting on him. Ywin does nothing but tremble as he stands there, witnessing this horrific scene. His friend, whom he was trying to rescue, stands up on his own feet. He walks toward the other zombies who are happily devouring the old man. When he reaches them, he sits down and sinks his teeth into the old man's head, joining the gruesome, macabre feast. Ywin doesn't waste a second and hides behind the wall. He reflects on how his once goofy friend has now become this brainless zombie. For a moment, Ywin thinks he must be dreaming, because whatever is happening could not be real. He closes his eyes and concentrates, trying to wake up from this nightmare. But no luck, because it's certainly not a dream. He then notices that it's the 29th of April, even though it's supposed to be the 24th. If he's understanding this correctly, he lost consciousness for 5 whole days. He quickly reaches for his phone and confirms that it's indeed the 29th of April. His phone is filled with missed calls and unread text messages from his sister, Nuna. In the messages, she expresses concern about his well-being and pleads with him not to go outside, begging him to stay alive. Soon enough, his phone dies. While Ywin has no idea what's going on, that's not an excuse for him to sit there and do nothing. If he wants to save Nuna and Minhee, he has to leave the hospital at all costs. In some random convenience store, we see a girl crying in a quiet corner of the store. The area outside is infested with mindless zombies, hungry for blood. So all she could do is pray for a savior to come. We cut back to Ywin, who sprints down the hospital corridor and then the stairs. As he's descending, he locks eyes with that head-banging zombie girl, but eventually he descends down and gets out of the hospital building. He's exhausted, and the hunger is finally overwhelming him. While he doesn't have time to stop and eat, he can't help it. After being knocked out for several days, it's natural he's feeling hungry. He's so hungry that he might collapse, so he decides to find food first. As he scans the area, he spots a convenience store. Without a second thought, he enters the abandoned store. He starts devouring burgers and soda like there's no tomorrow. After finishing his meal, he finally feels satisfied. But then, he notices something strange about himself. It's odd that he didn't even stop to consider whether the food he was eating was spoiled. Furthermore, he usually hated convenience store food, so it's unusual for him to be eating it. His eyes suddenly fill with tears as he remembers his friend who is now turned into a literal zombie. He recalls how his friend had always been curious about the existence of zombies, but now the poor guy has become one himself. As Ywin is drowning in sorrow over the loss of his friend, he suddenly notices commotion coming from a nearby storage room. He cautiously approaches the room and enters carefully inside. He sees the girl we've seen in previous cuts. She cries out loudly, thinking a zombie is creeping up on her. Totally overwhelmed with fear and panic, she finally dares to look back, only to find Ywin forcing a smile on his face as he offers to help. Meanwhile, a zombie outside is making its way toward the convenience store. Inside, Ywin gathers some edible items and offers them to the hungry girl, who devours the food like there's no tomorrow. Seeing how fast she's eating, Ywin suggests she slow down, warning that she might upset her stomach. The girl, finally feeling satisfied after eating and drinking some water, thanks him and says she feels much better. Out of sheer curiosity, she asks him how he managed to get inside, which catches him off guard. He explains that he was so hungry, he thought he needed to eat something, so he rushed into the convenience store. Of course, his explanation doesn't seem very convincing, especially considering how the place outside is overrun with mindless zombies. Suddenly, Ywin asks if he can find anything to charge his phone. She reminds him about some power banks in the store. Ywin decides to go get them and be on his way but the girl begs him not to open the door because there's zombies outside. Ywin reassures her that there were no zombies when he came in. But just as if summoned by fate, a zombie appears outside as soon as our boy opens the door. Once the zombie spots the girl, it goes absolutely nuts, charging toward her at full speed. However, since Ywin is standing between them, he shoves the monster away. He unintentionally shoves it so hard that the zombie flies through the air like a lightweight trash bag and skids across the floor. What Ywin thought was a simple push turned out to be a deadly counterattack. The girl behind him is stunned by such power. Ywin is equally bewildered, having no idea where all this strength came from. The zombie that took the brunt of the attack is down for the count. As the scene pans out, we realize just how powerful and messed up that push was. The zombie literally went through a glass window and was thrown about 15 feet away. Ywin claims he definitely pushed the zombie with all his strength, but he didn't expect to knock it out like that. That's when he notices another curious detail. Throughout all his time running around, there hasn't been a single zombie that tried to attack him. The girl then questions him about the secret behind his immense strength. Interestingly, she calls him a jussi, a term in Korean used to address middle-aged men, which Ywin definitely doesn't like. He doesn't want to be considered a creepy middle-aged man. Anyway, he remembers that he was supposed to grab a power bank, so he heads to the general goods section. Later, after charging his phone, he calls his sister, Nuna, but there's no response from her, which fills him with immense terror. He doesn't want to entertain the possibility that he might be too late to save her. Now, the image of Min and Nuna flashes before his eyes, and he feels tears well up, but he suddenly snaps out of these gloomy thoughts, as he can't be sure of anything yet. It's possible that her phone just died and that she's hiding somewhere, waiting for help to arrive. So, once again, he steels himself and decides to venture outside to find them. But before he can leave, he needs to figure out something with the girl in the convenience store. He asks her if she has a phone. She says yes, but it's dead. Ywin promptly offers her a power bank and suggests she call her parents. A while later, she manages to connect with her mother, and tears fill her eyes as she speaks. She quickly reassures her mother about her well-being and current whereabouts. Her mother, relieved, is happy to know she's alive. The daughter also makes sure to attribute her well-being to the efforts of this Ajussi who helped her. Once again, Ywin is annoyed at being considered a creepy middle-aged man, since he's only 28 years old. It feels unfair to be called that. Suddenly, the girl's mother warns her not to come back home. And with that, her mother hangs up on her, leaving the poor, concerned daughter in tears and sorrow. After the call, the girl continues to cry and sob uncontrollably. Seeing how desperate and helpless she looks, Ywin decides to help her. He suggests she tag along with him, and he will help her get home. Suddenly, their attention is caught by the commotion outside. It looks like more and more zombies have gathered. Inside the store, seeing this, the girl starts to cower even more, realizing that they have no chance of escaping. Ywin acknowledges that they won't be able to get out unless he takes care of the nuisance outside. He rummages through the store's supplies and creates a temporary weapon to defend and attack. Before leaving the storeroom, he sternly instructs her not to open the door under any circumstances. He assures her he will be back soon. With that, he heads out, leaving the girl pleading with him not to go, but he shuts the door in her face and goes to confront the zombies outside. After taking down the menace, Ywin returns and reassures her that everything is taken care of. Seeing him stand there confidently causes the girl's face to light up with immense astonishment. Just to be sure, she asks if he's okay. He affirms that he is. While he wasn't sure before, after fighting off those zombies, he's pretty damn confident that he's in good shape. Most importantly, he points out that the zombies don't seem to attack him to devour him. Later, Ywin goes into a garment shop and picks out some clothes for himself. After changing into fresh clothes, he finally leaves the store. As if luck is on his side, he spots a heavy bike parked on the other side of the road. The beauty of the bike seems to be staring back at him, almost as if it's inviting Ywin to ride. Later, when we return to the convenience store, we find the girl also changing into the clothes he brought her. Ywin apologizes to her, saying that he didn't know much about women's clothing, so he picked out whatever he thought might work. Since there aren't many zombies around, he decides to gather some food supplies before they leave. As they move through the shelves, Ywin finds a baseball bat and takes it for himself. The girl expresses her concern over how he's putting his life at risk just to keep her safe. They are literal strangers, and she doesn't understand why he's helping her. She also assumes that, being an Ajussi, he must have a family he wants to protect. First of all, Ywin can't help but make a creepy face when she calls him a Jussie again. Second, he reassures her that she shouldn't feel guilty. It's natural for someone to be in desperate need of help, and he's sure that someday he might need help too. Above all, since the zombies don't bite him, there's no real threat to his life. The moon is shining brightly, casting a calm light over the zombies that roam carelessly beneath it. But their tranquility is soon disrupted by the loud vroom of a 700 cubic centimeters engine. The one behind the handlebars is, of course, Ywin riding the new beauty. Even though he's making quite a bit of noise, the zombies don't immediately react. Likely, it's because his presence is overshadowing the girl sitting behind him. Since there are no obstacles in their path, he hopes to reach Nuna as soon as possible and rescue her from this mess. Now, we cut to a gas station. Inside a tuck shop, a man is hiding from the zombies. The bottle he's holding is his last source of water, and he knows that doom is soon to follow. He curses his rotten luck for getting stuck in this tuck shop, which has already been completely looted. Suddenly, the sound of a motorcycle catches his attention. This leads him to believe that there are survivors in the area. What's worse is that the sound is getting closer and closer. Eventually, the sound halts right outside the tuck shop at the gas station. Seeing how the rider of the bike casually stops in the middle of the monster-infested area, the man inside the tuck shop starts to lose his mind. It may not be a great idea, but he decides to take a life-risking chance and call out to them. But his worries are unfounded, because Ywin is already taking down the mindless zombies one by one. With just a single hit, each monster is down for the count. As Ywin takes down the zombies, the man in the tuck shop can hardly believe his eyes. Suddenly, a zombie sneaks up behind Ywin, so the tuck shop man shouts a warning to him. All Ywin does is take 2 steps back, and the zombie zips past him as if Ywin isn't even there. The sight leaves the man in the tuck shop in utter disbelief. Meanwhile, as the zombie is about to reach the girl behind the bike, my guy swings his bat with such force that the zombie flies through the air like a trash bag. With the area cleared, Ywin tells the girl to rest assured. As for the man stuck in the tuck shop, he still can't do anything but stare in complete astonishment at Ywin. If his eyes aren't fooling him, what he saw clearly proves that zombies weren't even trying to bite Ywin at all. Ywin proceeds to walk toward the fuel dispenser to fill up the motorcycle, since the road ahead will be long. But the duo is startled when the middle-aged man finally emerges from the tuck shop, excitement bubbling inside him. He's absolutely certain that the person in front of him is the exclusive scoop, a term that goes completely over Ywin's head. Drinking water as if he's never had something better in his life, the man remarks that he's glad he was able to quench his thirst. Curious, Ywin asks him how long he's been hiding for. Turns out, it's only been 3 days, though the guy wasn't expecting the convenience store to be completely run down and empty without having any resources. He's a little hopeful, though, now that he's met his saviors in the apocalypse. In an effort to help better their relationship, he introduces himself as Kim Giddu, a 32-year-old journalist who no longer cares about his job because their world has gone to shit. The girl is Park Gina, a 20-year-old freshman at her university. Finally, there's our boy, Ywin, who appears to be 28. He's rather reluctant in explaining that he's a mortician, or well, used to be. Giddu remarks that he doesn't look like one at all, while, for some reason, Gina is staring at him, a detail he calls into question. It's actually because the chick is surprised this guy didn't turn out to be an old-ass boomer uncle. Giddu learns how the two of them got together. Really, it was just a string of events that brought them together via the convenience store. Well, Ywin admits that it's a little weird they never even exchanged names until this point anyway. Giddu understands that both of them experienced some real horror being trapped here, which is something he's willing to expand on later. For now, he's actually pretty curious about something that's been bothering him. Giddu straight up asks about Ywin's strange ability, making him immune or invisible to zombies. Outside, the hordes of the undead are gargling and searching for fresh blood. Focusing back to their conversation, Ywin tells his story of how he was knocked unconscious for 5 days inside the morgue and only came to learn about the damning apocalypse after he got up. The most he recalls is getting sick before blacking out. The journalist is carefully pinning down these details, confirming Ywin's story that he made his escape from the hospital and found Gina shortly afterwards. Giddu also confirms that Gina was looking for her family in the middle of these events. Now, it seems like neither one of them actually knows about the events that took place, something Giddu considers a blessing. Mortified, Gina asks why. He ends up explaining that the entirety of the planet was reduced to a zombie land within that timeline. So, they can only imagine the worst. To expand on the details, the first 2 days were the definition of literal carnage. Normal people quickly turned into flesh-eating zombies, and most of them died without even getting the chance to know what was going on in the world. The really horrifying part is that they were hunted by their closest loved ones, not knowing what had gotten into their dear companions. With the way he's describing the details, Gina is out here weeping with her tear-filled eyes. The journalist apologizes for being too graphic in his details and emphasizes that Gina's family must be okay because of the confirmation of the call. He assures her that they'll meet again, a fact that Gina confirms, though her words are filled with doubt. Deciding to interject in the discussion, Ywin is curious about the journalist's story. Of course, even Giddu shares that being a journalist means very little to him right now. He was actually working on a case to find the cause of this apocalypse, and taking that risk led him to being stranded as he ran out of gas and ended up stuck. Invested in knowing the truth about the zombie apocalypse, Ywin inquires about his findings. The journalist argues that it's not that important, and his attention is thwarted to a more pertinent matter. The minute he turns to his left, he's terrified to see a group of zombies lashing out against the window. The scene terrifies the entire group, especially since they can't even exit the gas station before becoming a stake to this mad horde of zombies. Ywin believes they should step on the gas pedal and really get the heck out before finding out. Since they can't use the bike in this instance, he asks about the location of Giddu's car. It's parked on the roadside, just a few minutes away. Of course, their only shot of getting to the car is if they get past these creepy zombies in the first place. Arming himself with a club, Ywin decides to play the hero for them, declaring he'll clear a path while they'll block the door for him. It seems like a reckless idea to the journalist, especially since this guy is going to be risking his own life just to get out there. Ywin promises that he'll be okay, especially since he's got no zombies to worry about biting him. Turning to face Gina with a reassuring, gentle smile, he promises to take her home, just like he said so. Letting out a breath, our boy pulls up in a 1 versus 50 royale. Before he leaves, Gina musters up the confidence to tell him that he should just refer to her by her name since their age gap isn't too far. Hearing that, our boy smiles, uttering her name as he goes on to face the threat. The funniest part is Giddu's out here acting like a third wheel in the midst of a troubled couple. Anyway, the creepy uglies outside weren't expecting it, but one human really did just make a superhero's entry to face them all. With a determined glare, Ywin declares that he won't let a single one of them get inside. The horde of zombies scream as one human beats the crap out of them with his strength. He turns to one walking just past him, and I don't know if Ywin had a personal grudge against this guy or something, but this dude really just slammed the stuff out of him into the wall. He notes an interesting observation here. It's not just the fact that the zombies fail to attack him, but in fact it's almost as if they don't recognize his presence at all. While he's figuring out the process of why this is the case, Ywin does not care for now. All he cares about is standing firm on his objective to stop them from coming inside. Watching the scene from a window, Giddu finds himself on red alert. He can't believe his eyes. He makes the same observation as Ywin, but then there's also his terrifying strength increase that he's acquired out of nowhere. The way he's just destroying zombies by slamming them around exhausts quite a bit of his stamina, causing him to become hungry even though he recently had a meal. The feeling is similar to not having eaten for days. It's just like last time, making his body weak and in need of resources. Bashing the zombies left and right, Ywin concludes that he would probably feel a lot better after wiping the horde and consuming a meal. Meanwhile, the sight of Gina struck with incomprehensible terror causes Ywin to drop to his knees. It confuses Giddu and worries Gina, because this guy is basically sitting breathless amongst the horde of the undead passing by. He doesn't know what happened just now, or why he could only think of Gina at that moment. Here's the jaw-dropping kicker. Ywin is actually experiencing a severe temptation to eat a human. He's no different than the zombies in that regard, which actually kind of makes sense why they don't recognize his presence anyway. Gina is really worried and wants to help him, but Giddu sensibly tells her that it's reckless to do that. While they're arguing, Ywin reclaims his stance and continues mowing down the horde of the undead, hitting as many of them as he possibly can. He finishes his outlash by crushing a zombie's face into the ground. Unfortunately, by the end of his fiery attacks, he's left with a panting and terrified state. This is bad, and he knows it. Even Giddu can sense it from afar. The puzzled, troubled, and conflicted protagonist tries to assure himself in his sea of doubts, believing that he's different from the zombies. He's a human, isn't he? Or that's what he wants to believe. his eyes beaming with a red spirit. Ywin declares that he will never stoop so low as to become a monster like them. Well, it's a good thing that his temptations went away after consuming some water. Ywin drank a ton of it, but it's only logical for how many zombies he took down on his own. Gina is worried that he might be hurt, but really, he didn't take any physical damage from the fight. Of course, the journalist believes that fighting so many of them and actually killing them isn't an easy thing. Still bothered by the extreme hunger he experienced, Ywin's temptation is replaced by a gut-wrenching pain in his stomach. Deciding to focus on moving the needle forward, Ywin recommends using Gidu's car as their safest escape route. Of course, they can easily find a gas can around here somewhere and refuel the vehicle properly. Ywin suggests moving together because going alone is dangerous. This suggestion bombards them with a new level of panic. Suddenly, a dude out of nowhere comes screaming for help. Luckily, he didn't get reduced to shreds from the zombie horde earlier. Ywin notices that this guy seems legit, evident by his cry for help. The thing is, his friend is grievously injured and at the risk of death. But this situation is kind of tricky, as you wouldn't always just trust someone in the middle of an apocalypse. Ywin calculates his options, while Gidu recommends they stay sharp on their toes, because these guys could still be harmful. Gina argues against this idea, believing they should still help others in need. In any case, Ywin agrees with her approach, no matter how naive. Gidu gives up and agrees to do it, if they're okay with it. So, Gina opens the lock and welcomes these punks inside, who are just so grateful they took a chance on them. But unbeknownst to them, these guys truly are a bunch of scumbags, and they just got a free ticket inside. Gina hands them some water to revitalize themselves and asks about an update regarding their situation. Of course, Gidu is immediately skeptical and asks if their friend was bitten by a zombie. In response, the chubbier fellow panics and shows them there aren't any visible wounds. Another one of them believes that their friend should have turned into a zombie by now, if that was the case anyway. The journalist is still doubtful and asks about their strategy to survive. Turns out these guys have nothing to go off of and were basically trying to find help for their friend. Gidu is standoffish in his stance, but his attitude causes Gina to snap. She thinks he should focus on helping these guys while they're in danger, especially since it's only thanks to Ywin's consideration that they're alive. The guy who is sweating like bullets thanks them for their generosity. Gidu admits that perhaps he was too harsh in his approach, while Ywin turns to him and asks if the car is an SUV. This means that all 5 of them can travel without any trouble. But of course, Ywin has different plans because he wants to look for a motorcycle on his own. This is because he wants to lead the group by scouting for safer locations ahead of time. It's a wise strategy, since they can't stay in one place forever. The journalist agrees with the idea, and they decide to get the car as soon as possible. Gina promises to handle the injured fellow while they're busy retrieving the car. Gidu tells her that they'll be back soon, so she's got nothing to worry about. Of course, that's how they both leave, but unbeknownst to them, these bastards were plotting a scheme all along. The scene cuts to Ywin and Gidu arriving at the location of the car. They refuel the vehicle. Ywin is curious why the journalist is so opposed to the 3 new guys. He explains that his gut tells him not to trust these strangers. It's only because of the sheer horror he experienced in the past few days that has made him cautious of others. He has such a cynical view of people. Ywin is intrigued and asks why the journalist trusted them right off the bat. He says it's because he was already going insane from the dehydration and had to find a way to survive. Ywin is also curious why he referred to him as a scoop when they met. That basically means the journalist got lucky in finding a dude who is literally immune to the zombie apocalypse. In response, Ywin's stomach cracks open the skies with a loud grumble. This man is probably going to eat like Goku after this shit ends. He gets flustered, but it's only logical for him to get so exhausted after battling against zombies. Gidu believes they should aim for finding food after refueling the car. But something happens. A strange feeling creeps up on Ywin. He merely turns around, frozen in place. He has heard something, and it's not zombies this time. Ywin is confident that he could hear Gina's voice. Now, let's go back to the gas station where a girl is screaming to be let go. Gina has been seized by these bastards who blackmail her by saying that she'll only attract the zombies with her whining. This causes her to freeze even more when the barrel of a gun is placed against her head. The scumbag who is pretending to be sick reveals his true nature, overjoyed to have them right where he wanted. They fell for his shitty little gimmick, and he doesn't want to keep up with any disguises anymore. He and his group are planning to shoot down Ywin and get to the moment they return. As for her, She will serve as their perfect hostage for the situation. Gina gets annoyed and bites his damn finger, making the clown squeal like a little bitch. He smacks her face and continues to mercilessly beat her down with his gun. Though she's knocked unconscious, he's still seething from the stinging pain. Even his friend thinks it's funny that this dude ended up getting bitten by a human instead of the zombie. Anyway, he's done playing around and wants the chubbier friend to stay on guard outside. This perverted freak just wants to have his way with her while she's vulnerable. He plans on taking her with them after killing both her friends. This disgusting prick is unbuttoning her pants when Ywin comes around, enraged. He bashes this dude's head and knocks him flying like a ghost. He appeared out of nowhere, and seeing Gina's pitiful condition, rage is the only thing he can think about. Gidu also arrives, worried sick for her condition, and tries to help her out. He was right not to trust these freaks from the beginning. Ywin requests the journalist to take her into the car. Meanwhile, this man is in the mood to leave a bunch of bodies behind, so he's going to be staying here for a bit. The journalist brings her to the car, glad that he wasn't attacked by zombies in the process. He turns to her. Gina clearly looks hurt. It was no different from what he suspected the first time he saw those guys. Gidu thinks it's a good way to teach a lesson to both Gina and Ywin, warning them not to trust anyone right off the bat. But now she's safe, because even Gidu knows that they've got one hell of a protector. Speaking of our boy, let's zone in on the fight. This guy is passing these clowns a mean-ass glare. They just hurt his girl. No way he's going to let this slide. In response, both dudes come out with weapons of their own. One holding a baton and the other a crowbar, talking smack to our boy for overestimating his capabilities. Ywin doesn't say a word and shockingly drops his metal bat, perplexing both of them at first. They think he chickened out from the fight, but the chubby fellow has caught on and tells Gahan not to get ahead of himself, because clearly something is wrong with this guy. Nerves pop out on his face, his expression of anger turning to sinister craziness. His thoughts are muddled, but the worst part, he's hungry. He's hungry to devour real human flesh, and his sanity is on the cusp of destruction. Well, real shit goes down when he starts coming down on Gahan's corpse after killing him, enjoying every bite as he munches on his flesh. Then he turns to the rest, walking right up to the bastard who hurt Gina and took advantage of their trust. The guy is out here terrified to see Ywin the way he's acting right now. We get a seriously frightening shot of our boy just staring him down like he's about to have some KFC out here. The dude flails his little gun in response, but in the end, Ywin destroys him and consumes his flesh. After that, he quickly wiped off the blood. Gidu heard the gunshot sound and jumped out of the car in fear, but to his astonishment, only one man came out of the gas station alive, and it was Ywin. Worried, he asks if our boy is doing okay, but in response, he asks about Gina's condition, who seems to be doing fairly well asleep. It's reassuring for him to hear that, but Gidu is wondering why he changed his clothes. Ywin hands him the gun he retrieved from the clowns. It's a great thing to have in this damn apocalypse, so the journalist is happy. Also, he's more than willing to trust Gidu's intuition from now on, showing that he's adapting to his mistakes, unlike a fudge ton of protagonists and their naive optimism. Worried, the journalist asks if he's really okay, or if something happened. Pretending to be normal, Ywin shoots him a smile, masking his feelings in pain. As he checks on the bike, it's finally time for them to get the hell out of here. After all, Gidu doesn't know what the hell happened inside, but he chooses not to think too hard. It's time for the group to leave, so they head off. During their ride, Gina reawakens, only to find herself surprised that she's in a car with the journalist. She doesn't know what happened, but Gidu promises that they dealt with the manipulative shits who try to take advantage of them. Ywin is determined not to leave her side and plans to be extra protective of her. Hearing that, Gina cries, holding her face in tears. It causes Gidu to worry that she might have gotten hurt somewhere. She ponders why those people, the same people they tried to help, took advantage of them. They had noble intentions, and yet, instead of looking to survive together, those guys instilled a permanent, despairing feeling in her heart, causing her trust issues with anyone she is now going to meet. It's not a good feeling, and Gidu understands, but he gives her the word she needs to hear. On the bright side, he wants her to fully trust Ywin, even if she doesn't trust anyone else, as he's more than willing to protect her, no matter what happens. Let me pause for a moment and break down the significance of the scene where Ywin gave the journalist the gun. It's actually because he doesn't trust himself and wants Gidu to handle him in case he spirals out of control. Okay, going back into the story. Ywin and his group clear the area inside a building, with every last one down. Our boy wants to take his friends to the room he saw, but his eyes darted to a picture frame of a loving family. He almost forgot these zombies were once real people and apologizes for having killed the father. Anyway, he secured 2 rooms for his group. There's not much for them to worry about anymore, but he's confused why the journalist wanted them to the night, especially since they've got a travel vehicle now and all. It's because Gidu wanted them to rest from all the exhaustion, as traveling in the daytime would be safer. To top it off, it's imperative for Gina to get all the rest she needs. Worried, Ywin asks if she'll be alright. It's not looking bright, because she's endured a severe mental scar from this experience, halting her ability to trust anyone anymore. It's a hopeless feeling, and it's really sad how some traumatic experiences can corrupt a person's view of the world for the rest of their lives. But the journalist argues that it's necessary for Ywin to play his role well here, since she doesn't trust anyone anymore. She will only rely on someone like Ywin, the man who saved her and protected her time and time again. Ywin doesn't really want to step into those shoes and says that it's literally their first day together. But the journalist argues that they've been through a lot for one day, which is also true. Anyway, the second reason he wanted to find a place to rest is because of Ywin himself. As a reporter, he's been meaning to ask him a bunch of things. The first question is why the zombies don't see his presence. Of course, Ywin doesn't know the answer to that question, but he strongly believes that they don't recognize him at all. The journalist enters a thoughtful state, wondering what kind of explanation could describe the cause. Since it's their first day together, they don't know much, but Gidu wants him to keep him updated in case Ywin discovers something new about his condition. The next question is whether or not Ywin has dabbled in sports or martial arts before. The question comes across strange to Ywin, who denies any such thing, because that's the one thing that really surprised the journalist, his monstrous strength, as he was casually picking up zombies and slamming them into walls and pavements like they were nothing. The journalist declares that it's almost as if he isn't even human, a phrase that makes Ywin shrink back in fear. Gidu understands that even Ywin is clueless about his condition. To disengage from the serious topic, the journalist apologizes for asking so much of the guy right after he saved their lives. Also, Ywin's quest to find his sister is still up in the air. He wants to check their home to see how she's doing, since his sister is located in Yangyang, and that place is pretty far away from here. There's no telling if they'll be able to make the trip. Still, despite the odds and the difficulties presented in front of him, Ywin wants to do everything in his power to help save his sister. The journalist strongly opposes the idea because the place is far away and there's no need for him to be so reckless. Ywin doesn't understand why either, though he senses that it's just the right thing to do. Hearing those words, Gina appears to be awake, her eyes filled with tears, moved by Ywin's honesty. Gita thinks the guy is a bit too nice, and it only makes sense why Gina trusts him unconditionally. Journaling his thoughts on paper, Gita wants to conclude the conversation with one question. He wants to know if Ywin has sensed any specific patterns about the zombies, just about any kind of information that could help them in the long run. Scratching his head in confusion, Ywin replies that he doesn't know anything meaningful. He believes their senses are still intact, but that theory is also inconsistent, because it doesn't add up why zombies can tell the difference between humans and one of their own. Surprising them with her entry, Gina drops a bombshell. The zombies are actually attracted to exposed skin, as per the words of her manager, who hid in the storage room before being attacked. Gidu is worried that she's up early, but Gina sits down after failing to fall asleep for a while. Also, she apologizes to our boy for making him needlessly worried, reassuring him that she's better now anyway. Gidu is curious by her words and asks for more. Gina explains that the zombies are drawn to exposed skin, which is also why she asked for longer pants back at the store. The troubled reporter is even more confused than before, realizing that they've much to work with here. In any case, it's best for them to look for gloves to cover more of their skin. Gina actually ends up finding a functioning radio nearby. The transmission from the radio mentions the 6th day of the virus outbreak, remarking how life continues to be threatened by the apocalypse. Gina can't believe that the radio is actually functioning at this time. The broadcast is live, reporting the 5 days of the apocalypse. Ywin and Gidu are shocked to find the channel still functioning, which means the station must be safe. But Ywin believes that they might be trapped inside the station instead. This may seem more like a distress signal, instead of an actual broadcast. Well, Gina knows the station is nearby, so Gidu recommends they leave in the hands of Ywin, who should make the ultimate call. After all, he's the only one among them capable of navigating inside the station. Still, Ywin strongly believes that finding Gina's parents is more of a priority, and he's fine with reconsidering various options after that. Seeing him stand up for her so many times, Gina feels relieved. The journalist is okay with that thought and suggests they all take some rest. In the next scene, we get a dream sequence where our boy is bolting away from the zombies in fear. They're slowly getting to him, and in the end, all he can do is brace himself for the pain to come. Ywin snaps out of it and sees Jinmin's body appear before his eyes. It's clearly shocking because he's not supposed to be alive. It makes him wonder if the whole zombie apocalypse thing was a dream to begin with. But then bro's life turns to shit as a horde of zombies savor on a human's flesh, giving him more nightmares to think about. Jinmin invites his buddy to go along and eat with them, as he's supposed to like human flesh. And his face looks like something out of a horror movie. Imagine your best buddy covered in blood like that and inviting you to eat human flesh. Scary, right? Ywin finally awakens, his breath panting and his eyes full of horror. Daylight hits the edge of his bed, and peace eventually sets in. His hands still tremble from the experience as he collects his thoughts. Reinforcing himself once more, he vows that he'll never turn out to be like the zombies. The scene cuts to a different location, where a couple is resting on their bed. Having freshly run out of food to eat, instead of worrying about their own health, they're even more worried about their daughter, Gina. They're hoping she was rescued by a reliable person. The poor mother just wants to see her daughter a second time, and they embrace their demise, as there's nothing they can do. Suddenly, Gina's father is drawn to a sound that wakes him up. He heard a motorcycle hinting at a survivor. To his surprise, the bike stopped around them. The zombies are mangling about, so this decision seems reckless to Gina's parents because they don't know about Ywin's special powers. He safely came to the exact location Gina described, but there are no signs of human life so far. He entertains the idea of neutralizing the horde before expanding their search. So, our boy uses his trusty metal bat to knock the ever-living crap out of one of them. The scene leaves Gina's parents at a loss for words. They're seeing one dude just destroy zombies without any trouble. It makes them wonder what kind of person he is. With the path cleared, Ywin looks around and realizes why Gita's car can't make it this deep into the city without clearing it. So now, he wants to scout his surroundings to investigate more. Ywin ends up walking in the direction of their house, hopping over the wall. They're afraid of going out and trusting a complete stranger until suddenly, Ywin addresses them and asks for confirmation of Gina's parents. Both of them come rushing to welcome him after hearing their daughter's name. They're so caught up that it startles even Ywin for a second. Fast forwarding to Gina finally getting a chance to embrace her parents. The family goes for a happy reunion. Seeing them get back together, Ywin's face lights up, relieved that he was able to fulfill his promise. Unfortunately, Gita has to remind them to do this inside, as it's still unsafe out here. Gina's father grabs his hand, thanking them dearly for taking care of their daughter. Of course, the journalist doesn't want to take any credit and tells them it was all Ywin's doing. They head inside at last, Gina's parents explaining how they were lucky and how they managed to create multiple blockades against the zombies to ensure their survival. Unfortunately, being trapped inside expired their resources, and they did everything to search for their daughter. Luckily, they have her back now, so they're extremely grateful to the two men that helped her. But Gitu explains that it's all thanks to Ywin, who's been taking care of things for them. Ywin learns that they didn't step foot outside for 6 days. The power went out, but thankfully, water was working fine, and that's how they survived. Well, there wasn't any food left to eat, so they were practically starving to death at this rate. Ywin realizes he has to do something about their situation and remembers riding past a supermarket down the road. The shutters were down, which means the supermarket probably has a boatload of resources inside, making it a good way for them to stock up on resources. He has to ensure their survival, so he's going to go outside. But Gina's father is against the idea, as he would be risking his life for them. Even then, Ywin believes they can't survive without the basic human resource, plus they haven't eaten anything for 2 days, and he can't just glance over them. Agreeing with the idea, Gitu pitches in, stating that they should prioritize survival, as anything could happen with the way things are going. Gina's father musters up the resolve to help our boy, but of course, Ywin wouldn't want to risk something like that. So he turns him down and tells him to focus on Gina's condition first. Hearing that, Gina's father is reduced to a mess. There's nothing more endearing like a man worried for his family. Well, Ywin takes off. Gitu intends to come along with him to manage the food, following Gina's theory. He's got himself covered completely, and wants to help Ywin by being useful instead of acting as a burden. That's a good thing for the protagonist, who's got a dependable ally to work with. They say their goodbyes to the family and right away. Of course, Gina's family is worried, but she's hella confident in our boy's survivability and believes Ywin will always return. At the supermarket, the two of them crack open the locks and lift the shutter, exposing an untouched stash of valuables for them to steal. It's a miracle to find a supermarket like this in such an apocalypse, with so much to use. Ywin and Gidu are confident the family can easily survive for a few years with this much stuff. They get busy collecting what they need, and the scene transitions to the NBS headquarters. Here, a worried man talks to someone on the phone. Unfortunately, he's stuck handling the daily broadcast and has to follow strict instructions. Suddenly, he hears a sudden message from the other side, telling him about important information. When the call ends, the guy is left questioning the purpose behind the messages being broadcasted. Among his jotted thoughts, he has recently come to know of a bike rider whose identity is unknown to him. Ywin and Gidu acquired what they needed most. They used this chance as an opportunity to grab a bunch of medicines from the pharmacy as well. All of a sudden, the journalist felt the crushing weight of stealing from stores. Still, it's too late for them to be worrying about meaningless things like that when the world is destroyed. Since looting the store was going to take a bit, Ywin was on guard duty, especially since medicines need to be carefully checked before being taken. The MBS headquarters was just up ahead, and Ywin was busy staring at it. He recalled the broadcast was from the same radio, which means Gina was correct about it being close by. Gita thought it would be unwise to worry about the broadcast at this time, especially since they have to take care of Gina's family first and focus on finding his sister. Gita told him to just give it up for now and focus on more pertinent matters. Though reluctant, Ywin understood that he has to find his sister as soon as possible, especially since she stopped responding to his messages. Fast-forwarding back to Gina's family, they shared an excellent meal, revitalizing themselves after being completely drained for 2 days. The family was so grateful that he's done so much for them. All of this should last the four of them a minimum of 6 months. Unfortunately, he won't be staying since he has to go find his sister. Gina's family was worried, and her mother asked about his sister's location. His sister lives really far away, so it's not going to be easy. Ywin understands that, but he has to save his one and only family he has left. Hearing that, Gina sat in silence, understanding his pain. Though he has one more request. After saving his sister, he wants to bring her back to Gina's family, which makes her feel flustered. Ywin strongly believes that this is the safest place among all, and it's not like his sister has important connections of her own to worry about in these times. Since the zombies can't bite him, he'll be of great use to them anyway. He just wants to make sure Gina is safe, and he's willing to do anything for that. That's why he promises to return with his sister and help them out even more. Of course, Gina's family can't even decline a request like this, but they do have one strong objection. Gina's father is having a temper tantrum because he thinks Ywin wants to steal his daughter. Even a mom catches on, but she's more supportive than anything. Can't believe they're thinking about grandkids when they're in the middle of a damn apocalypse. At night, they have to manage their way with candles. There's no power, after all. Ywin learns that Gina's parents are fast asleep. They continue on their nightly talks. Gidu, calculating his thoughts, wonders how much food they'll have to take to get to Yongyang for 2 people. Hearing that, Ywin remarks in confusion, especially when the journalist admits that he's coming along to help. Our boy, it seems like a ridiculous idea to abandon a safe location like this. Ywin questions, but Gidu understands the risks. It's just that he's always been part of a risky job. He's just dying to know more about you, Ywin, and that's why he's sticking to him like a persistent bug. Gidu remarks, Bro is going to use him to make a name for himself. But it really makes me laugh because it's not like anyone's going to be caring about fame in a zombie apocalypse, right? Gidu reminds him of Ywin's own words, who boldly said that he'd trust the journalist's words from now on. Promising not to be a burden, the journalist assures him that they'll be fine. Also, since he's traveled a lot as a journalist, he knows all the ways to handle safe navigation. Ywin is okay with that, so Gina gives them one last thing to go along their journey. It's actually the radio that she picked up from the building. It's going to be useful in learning about new information around the area, even though Gidu is a bit skeptical on that front. Ywin is startled when the radio suddenly pops open a new transmission. The transmission talks about the confirmed reports of multiple witnesses from around the area. The center of attention is a man who is immune to the undead, someone famously dubbed as the Motorcycle Man. As the broadcast sinks in, Gidu quickly catches on that the radio is probably talking about our boy. The reporter further continues about this mysterious motorcycle man who was first sighted in Incheon, then Buchin, Gangseo, and Waguk. All say this guy is heading straight for the heart of Seoul. That's the man who doesn't get hit by the infected. Maybe he is the solution to all their problems. Clinging to hope in the middle of all this mayhem, he initiates the MBS midday radio. Meanwhile, Ywin, sitting next to Blondie on the couch, looks shaken, like he wasn't expecting to hear that. The RJ continues, saying that a man who gets no darn effect on him if attacked by the infected. That news isn't something he bought at first. And who would broadcast this bullcrap, he asks. He says he's gotten some complaints telling him not to give people false hope, but even though he is stuck in this broadcast studio, he keeps it going just to send even the tiniest spark of hope to the survivors listening. The lot stuck in the endless rut of despair and loneliness. He wants to let them know that giving up isn't an option. He has faith that hope will never die and that salvation will come to pass. That's NBS Radio's producer, coming live, Sun Jincheol. The trio listened to Jincheol. They look straight up, stunned by all this. Meanwhile, Jincheol threw on a track to lighten the mood. A soothing song for troubled hearts, worn out from all the despair. With that, RJ hit play, letting the song flow to countless souls stuck in the depths of despair. Leaning back like a dead weight, RJ looked completely drained. Even after preaching hope on the radio, he didn't seem to believe in it himself. A worrisome fact, he had no clue how much longer he could keep up this life. Back at the house, the trio just sat there, totally speechless. No one had even said a word in minutes. Then, Gidu broke the silence. Did the RJ call himself Sun Jincheol, the PD from MBS? Ywin tended to ask if Gidu knew the guy. Reaching for his pocket, Gidu mumbled under his breath, "I have Jincheol's number somewhere." He finally found it. "So, I definitely met the guy at the radio current affairs department. What's wild, though, is that I'm starting to think Jincheol might be running the whole station solo." Aside from that, Ywin checked with Gidu to see if the radio place was still taking reports for the broadcast. Gidu was sure they were still doing it, no doubt. After taking all in, Ywin finally spoke up, ready to claim that he was the motorcycle guy. This big confession blew their minds, no doubt. He straight up admitted that the truth is zombies don't bite him, but he still has no clue why. Despite everything, Ywin, having a long face, didn't want to give people false hope. He felt like he didn't deserve to pull this stunt. However, Gidu tried to understand his side of the view, but he suggested the guy try taking caution at something that could endanger his life, especially when he is living in a world where trusting anyone is the act of a fool, in Gidu's view. If you expose your identity, you are definitely screwed. But Ywin felt like stuff like that doesn't really matter now. Flashing a grin, he straight up said that exposing his identity isn't a big deal, especially in a world like this. Still, he told them to take a chill pill, swearing that he will be as careful as possible, so there won't be anything to worry about. Sighing aloud, Gidu gave away the green flag, finally letting Ywin do his thing. Afterwards, Gidu decided to hook Ywin up with that broadcast guy. After all, he is somewhat tight with the PD personally. Moreover, he is sure that the PD will only buy his story if he vouches for him. For that, Ywin is really grateful to Gidu for his nonstop support till now. Ringing the call to the MBS Sun Jincheol, Gidu claimed to be Kim Gidu, asking if he is in the middle of the broadcast. Jincheol couldn't believe his ears upon hearing the voice of journalist Kim Gidu. Feeling relieved, he went ahead and asked, "Are you in a safe spot right now?" Gidu admits to being in a safe situation, brushing it off. He gets to the real thing. That's when he confesses to keeping intel that needs reporting. Without wasting time, Gidu drops a big hint, saying the motorcycle guy from the broadcast might just be his colleague. Spilling that out, Gidu and Ywin look at each other for a moment. But Jincheol practically jumps out of his seat. The dude can't handle this bombshell, asking if he's really speaking the truth. Right then, he flinches as this grave news breaks out. He trembles like a shaky leaf, struggling to make sense of it all. Snapping out of it, Jincheol hurries over to the radio system. He apologizes to the audience, claiming to have gotten a major tip-off. Urgently, he decides to cut the transmission with this last song. Back to the call, Jincheol can only hope Gidu's words of wisdom hold true. With reports about the motorcycle guy coming in now and then, there's a lot of uncertainty. Some true, some just rumors. When asked, Gidu didn't even hesitate. He was ready to stake his name on it, just like any true journalist would. That takes Jincheol by surprise, whose eyes pop out of his socket in shock. Taking a look back, Gidu, fighting through the crowd, calls back to the Humpty Dumpty-looking chairman. At the part of his unfair appointment, Giddu demands an explanation from the chairman. In his journaling days, Giddu, shivering in the cold, awaited the explanation, but he never got the chance. Now, Jinchial is ready to buy Giddu's truth, confirming if his colleague is still with him. That said, Giddu signals Ywin, and he then joins the call, claiming to be the motorcycle guy. This mere voice stuns Jinchial for a moment. Keeping it cool, he's got his list of questions ready, ones he needs answers to. Meanwhile, the lot from every corner of the world hears RJ, Jinchial stating that the motorcycle guy actually holds great importance for his listeners. He knows that everyone has fallen into the pit of despair, and for them, just knowing someone out there can't be bitten by the infected, that alone is their last shred of hope. Without further ado, son Jinchial asks Ywin if it's all true, and that's when he verbally confesses to being immune to the infected. However, the reason is still unknown. Furthermore, he goes on to say that the infected don't seem to notice him at all. They don't get aggressive and barely react to his voice, like he is not even here. Jinchial notes it all down. After a sudden pause, Ywin says he still isn't the kind of hope Jinchial is looking for. Yeah, he's helped some people with this ability, but he's got his own limits too. That's that. Jinchial decides to pass only the verifying intel, even if Giddu has vouched for him. Moreover, he demands to see any evidence proving his immunity to the infected. Ywin asks Jinchial if the area around MBS is swarming with the infected. That sends chills down Jinchial's spine. Ywin confirms that he's coming there himself the same night. Jinchial is having a hard time buying Ywin's gutsy claims. Jinchial demands to know if he will be daring to come solo, for real. With eyes filled with determination, he declares that that's the only condition for making Jinchial believe his story. Then he is down to taking the risk for it. That's enough to freak Jinchial out. But his RJ protocol wouldn't let him bend the rules of passing the intel without verification. Thus, he is expecting Ywin to come by MBS, as it wouldn't trouble him if the infected doesn't give a damn about him. Then he drops his current whereabouts, residing inside MBS Broadcasting Station on the 8th floor, second studio from the end of the right hallway. Jinchial warns this hi-fi immunity claimer that his station is practically overrun by the infected mafia. However, Ywin, unfazed, still sets their meeting time for tomorrow, as this guy doesn't care whatsoever. After this, Jinchial redirects to journalist Giddu, saying that he never imagined hearing his voice in times like these. Thus, he wishes that Giddu take good care of himself to ease the PD's troubled mind. Giddu assured him that they would find him soon. And just like that, the call ends. The infected radar doesn't sense Ywin at all. Not to mention, he is completely immune to their mess, and they won't bite him no matter what. All this information is seemingly hard to process for this guy. But Jinchial's mind wanders, questioning what if it's all true. Letting it all sink in, Jinchial realizes Ywin isn't just hope, but he might be salvation itself. The next day, Ywin's prep is all set, telling Giddu that outside is wide open, clear as day, and not a single zombie near his car. Gearing up, Giddu is pretty much ready for this heist. Right then, Gina's mother comes down to hand over Ywin some homemade rice balls. She believes that it's going to be a rough and tough ride, so it's good to have something. The dude practically jumps in excitement to notice a pile of rice balls packed in the box for him. After thanking her big time, he promises to eat it all. Just like that, this woman warns Ywin to be extra careful and bring back his sister in one piece, because they will definitely be waiting for them. Just as Ywin steps out, Gina rushes out to get his attention. At a loss for words, she couldn't meet his eyes. He assures Blondie that there's nothing to worry about, as zombies wouldn't dare mess with him. However, her emotions go wild, and before she knows it, she is wrapping Ywin in a tight hug that catches him off guard. But this cutie couldn't help but thank Ywin for everything. But she wants this guy to return at all costs. Turning as red as a tomato, Ywin tells her not to worry, as he fully intends to return safely. Out of nowhere, Giddu feels a sense of unease, dismissing the idea of marriage. Dating is fine, he rants, but marriage? That's far too rushed. Feeling utterly disgusted at this, they make horrible faces at him, showing their annoyance. Afterward, Ywin heads out, while the people behind hope for their safe return. Hours later, Ywin and Giddu arrive at the crazy zone, now infested with zombies. Giddu is packed and secure in the car. The immunized Ywin, bat in hand, scores good hits on those brainless dummies. One savage hit catches the attention of other zombies, who can't help turning to look, having a close inspection. Ywin speculates, if we don't take down this swarm, this whole area will be a pain in the head. Not only that, he believes it will become much more dangerous to find shelter in this chaos. Gidoo understands where he is coming from and tends to let Ywin handle this one. Ywin, taking a sigh, knows that it isn't an easy task, but he doesn't have any choice left. Gripping his bat, this big shot warns the brainless army that he has to pass through by all means. Inside, son Jinchial is close to passing out due to extreme weakness. Dumped in a corner, Jinchial feels like his body is giving out. Whatever strength is left of him, he thinks to have reached his limit. Any more of this, and he is done with this life. Nothing to drink or to eat, his supplies have run out long ago, so he resorts to waiting for his death. By the looks of his health, today's broadcast doesn't seem like a possibility now. Still, he feels even worse for not leaving a farewell message in yesterday's broadcast. If only he knew things would sink this low. Even so, Jinchial anticipated this much to happen like this, but he would have one lasting regret. He still desires to confirm the truth behind the motorcycle man. Feeling dizzy, like he's one step from the stairway to heaven, Jinchial thinks it's a damn shame to go out without satisfying his curiosity. All of a sudden, Jinchial's phone flashes a ring that catches his attention. As it turns out, it's his fellow journalist, Kim Gidoo. Without missing a beat, he grabs his phone to answer quickly. Thus, the speaker blows a concerned voice, and Gidoo demands to know if Jinchial is still doing okay. Just like that, Gidoo finally gets an answer, as Jinchial confirms to be doing fine for now. Sighing in relief, Gidoo lets him know to hang in there, as they are surely not so late. This hint spikes his curiosity and also passes a chill down his spine. Seeding bullets like crazy, he straight up questions Gidoo, asking his current whereabouts. Without further ado, Gidoo calmly lets him know that they successfully arrived at the MBS building. Suddenly, Jinchial's soul probably jumps out of his skin, having a hard time buying the all. He can't believe those fools actually made it to the MBS building. Even then, he warns the idiots that the entrance is infested with zombies, making it impossible for anyone to pass through. To ease his mind, Gidoo initiates a video call with Jinchial. Just as Gidoo gets him on FaceTime, Jinchial's mind is blown away to witness the atrocious acts of motorcycle guy yanking the zombies away. He takes notice of the infected getting slammed away, crushed by a bat, only to carve a path straight to the entrance. That man alone is being a total menace to wipe them out. Gidoo explains that if he stepped outside, he would be 1 second from death, but in the case of Ywin, well, the guy is built differently, son. Jinchial bears witness to seeing Motorcycle Man true to his words. He sees the first guy who isn't a zombie's preferred menu. No bite from the brainless rot makes him the face of hope. After wiping them out, Ywin's head zones out with endless thoughts. This all occupies his head, haunted by the trauma of butchering countless people. After a momentary pause, he gives the green flag for Gidoo, saying that it's safe to step out now. Then, Gidoo comes out believing that it's all for real. So, he stands by his wise words to set the record straight. He states that the broadcasting station would remain a hellhole if someone like Ywin didn't take a step to disinfect it. Only he got the chance to enter the MBS building. Just then, Ywin spots a police shield lying around useless. Time to grab something useful. He hands the police shield over to Gidoo, saying it will definitely come in handy, no doubt. Gidoo feels the same way. Moving ahead, Ywin is sure of bumping into many more brainless duds inside. Thus, he gives a piece of advice. Gidoo, your best chance of surviving this is by sticking closer to me. With that, you wouldn't have a problem living another day. Gidoo remembers the inside of the MBS building is nothing short of a labyrinth for newbies. But thanks to Gidoo's familiarity with this place, he gets to be the guide who knows the radio station's layout. Thus, he wishes to be their navigator in this assignment. And just like that, these two brave fools make their way inside. Walking inside, mostly it's all vacant. Luckily, wherever these two patrol, Ywin, with the baseball bat as his weapon of choice, checks out another room, but it's steered clear of any survivors or zombies. That surprises Gidoo, but he feels something's off. Climbing up, Gidoo has this unsettling feeling bubbling in his chest, which is forcing him to keep a lookout, head turned every other second. The dude mutters that this kind of silence just doesn't feel right. Then he tends to ask Ywin if everyone just bolted when the incident went down. At first, Ywin's mind races with countless thoughts, trying to cook up a reason for all of this. However, he ends up with a question instead. Without wasting time, he asks Gidoo why Jinchial is so determined to keep the broadcast going. He gets the idea that regardless of his situation, Things must be really tough for him. But even then, why must he keep the broadcast going? Giving it a thought, Gidu probably thinks it's his sense of responsibility as an informant. After all his years of working at the broadcasting station, he kept providing all kinds of info, even at these dire times. Gidu believes that Jinchial wishes to keep doing what's in his power, like a sense of duty to mankind. Ywin thinks the work Gidu and Jinchial do as journalists is seriously impressive, which catches Gidu off guard. As a couple of journalists, they didn't seem to lose their sense of duty and kept collecting intel to make sense of the situation, and in many ways, probably trying to resolve the situation. Besides that, Ywin feels like there's nothing he can really do as a mortician, which makes him feel kind of pathetic. Just then, Gidu hits him with the shield, which almost pops his eyeballs out. He asks Gidu what's the fuss, but Gidu claims this hits on Gina's name. He believes that Gina would have done the same thing if he saw Ywin's loser self resurfacing, without a doubt. Gidu comes up with a question, asking Ywin who is the person that can comfortably exist without so much care in this world? Cutting to the chase, Gidu fairly spits out that Ywin has a million chances to look for his way out, and he can set his mind to do anything. Even then, he bluntly chose to rescue Gina himself and her family. Now, Gidu flashes his point that Ywin is going out of his way to save PD Jinchial too. That's something only Ywin has the power to do. But the real reason behind it is something entirely else. That said, Gidu insists it's a choice he made because it's the right thing to do. Furthermore, this world reeks of people with malice, not just survival. And the guys who messed with Gina at the gas station quite make an example. But even in this messed up world, Ywin steps in to help purely out of pure goodwill. What's so pathetic about that? And Gidu guarantees that no one else in the world has stepped up to do what Ywin has done so far. That does the trick, and Ywin thanks Gidu for this thumbs up. Reaching the 8th floor, these two goofballs are ready for the showdown. Carefully sneaking in, they enter the silenced corridor that luck runs vacant too. At the left end of the hallway, the second door, they finally reach the entrance of Studio 6. Gidu plans to call Jinchial, oblivious to what's about to hit them. In mere seconds, a hungry, freak-infected leaps into action to get a good bite of Gidu. Turning his head, Gidu freaks out. His soul jumps out of his skin in pure terror. Just in time, Ywin yanks Gidu out of the way. The lad gets sent flying like a missile. But to their darn luck, that zombie bites the wrong guy. Panic sets in. Gidu screams, worried sick for Ywin, who has fallen from the zombie bite. Right then, he lands a savage blow to knock the zombie out of the way. At his wit's end, the lad can't believe he got bitten by the infected. Gidu is practically losing his mind at this moment. Ywin has no clue what's about to happen next, wondering if he is about to change as well. He asks Gidu if he is still keeping that gun with him. Gidu's chill levels plummeted faster, and he was drenched in sweat, unable to make sense of these dire circumstances. Ywin hopes that he is still carrying one. Gidu went from 0 to existential dread pretty fast. The dude took business days to process what Ywin was implying. Sweating bullets, he demands to know what Ywin has in mind. However, Ywin is in a rush to get this over with, bursting into Studio 6. Inside, he found the same zombie he knocked down moments before. Trembling, seeing this horrific sight, he refuses to fall to this degree and be like them. Thus, he decided to do his best until he lost his mind. Meanwhile, the woman, practically shivering like a shaky leaf, snaps out of the zombie fever, begging Ywin to stop. Now, that wasn't in the cards. Ywin's eyes widened in shock to see a zombie shifting back to his human mode. Ywin stands face to face with this anomaly, while Gidu watches it all go down from outside the room. Bawling her eyes out, she begs Ywin to save her. She pleads for a chance to prove her innocence, insisting she hasn't done anything. Totally thrown off, Gidu wonders if she's actually infected or not. However, Ywin can't ignore the truth that she jumped at him to attack and bite him. If she isn't infected, then why did she bite his hand? Along with momentary silence, the room fills with the woman's sobs. That's when Ywin decides to get her out of this risky place and take her to the studio first. The sight sent a jolt of terror through Gidu's mind, practically paralyzing this dude out of fear. As Ywin decided to take the biter with them, he reasons with Scaredy Cat that she isn't infected, so they can't let her rot here. He makes up his mind to think it over after reaching a much safer place. In the middle of processing this foolish idea, Gidu notices Ywin's bitten hand and finds something odd. As it turns out, the wound healed in a matter of seconds. This shocking revelation hits him like a ton of bricks. On the other hand, Jinxial, probably lifeless or drawing on his last reserves, lies in the corner, awaiting his rescuers. He's pretty sure he hears something nearby, making him wonder what's going on. That's when Gidoo's call alert catches him off guard. So he picks right up, asking if they are alright. Gidoo rightfully confirms Jinxial's location to be Studio 6. Without further ado, Gidoo requests Jinxial to open the door, as he is at the entrance. Completely thrown off, he tends to question if Gidoo is actually there and whether the area around him is safe. Gidoo nods, giving a quick yes, saying there aren't any infected around. Getting down to opening the door, Gidoo looks behind at Ywin, comforting the former infected. Jinxial and the former zombie dig into Gina's homemade rice balls, like they haven't eaten in 3 days. Meanwhile, Gidoo pays his respects to Jinxial for keeping up the broadcast for a whole week by himself. Witnessing the crazy hunger pangs, Ywin tells the lads to calm down, as there is enough for them. Jinxial mentions finding some food here, luckily, so he is all full for now. He figures that, compared to the woman who went a full week starving, he's still in a much better spot. Eating like a maniac and gulping down water at a much faster pace, she finally takes a good long breath. And just then, she thanks her heroes for saving her life. She has no clue how to pay them back. Ywin brushes it off, and Gidoo confirms her name to be Choi Sujin. When asked, Sujin admits to working at the department store. Turns out Sujin was heading to MD for a broadcasting sponsorship when everything suddenly went haywire. In the hallway, out of nowhere, screams filled the station, coming at her from every direction. Sensing something was off, she did her best to run, but luck wasn't on her side. She stumbled right into a horde of zombies. They tore into her, dragging her into darkness. Now, as she recalls it, tears well up in her eyes. Letting her calm down, they slip into a 2-minute silence routine. Breaking the silence, Jinxial questions what's the first thing Sujin remembers after that. Thinking back, she says she heard 2 voices, which instantly stuns Ywin and Gidoo. Mild at first, she states that it grew gradually, followed by the taste of blood. Panic sets in as Sujin bets that it felt strangely strong. Looking back, the memory is still so vivid in her mind. It lingers on her lips as if it just happened. Seeing how these hungry folks hadn't even had a moment to breathe, Ywin decided to continue this conversation in a better setting. For now, they let the woman get some well-needed rest. Afterward, Jinxial is completely fascinated to learn that this woman is actually a former zombie. Gidoo confirms that she jumped in to attack him, but ends up fighting Ywin instead, only to suddenly turn human again. Not to mention Ywin's arm, which took the bite. It didn't become infected, and the wound healed itself like it was never there. Jinxial totally buys it. He doesn't need Gidoo's evidence report after seeing Ywin's unnatural immunity to zombies. Nothing else can surprise him. Rather, this whole situation got him thinking about a new hypothesis. Since the real cause of the crisis still hasn't come out yet, even the government couldn't keep up. Martial law turned out to be completely useless. Jinxial thinks of the possibility that it's an airborne virus turning people into zombies. Gidoo tends to ask why they haven't been affected. To counter this question, Jinxial paints quite a picture that they are primary immune bodies with resistance to airborne infection. This whole theory kind of blows their minds. Even if their immunity only worked against airborne infection, the easy transmission through blood or saliva, like a bite, could still turn them into zombies. In the case of Ywin, Jinxial formalized the theory of full-body immunity, making Ywin the safest dude in the world. Thus, when Sujin tasted Ywin's blood during the bite, it somehow turned her back into a human. This whole explanation now points straight at Ywin. Jinxial declares that Ywin might not just be completely immune, but a walking, talking vaccine. Ywin stands still, trying to understand what he just heard. The idea of being a vaccine seems impossible, yet everything that has happened makes him rethink it. His mind keeps going back to the events leading up to this moment, searching for an explanation. Afterward, Jinxial, who has been observing the situation carefully, explains that it is only a theory. However, based on what they have seen, it makes the most sense. Gidoo steps in, suggesting they slow down and think things through. The situation is complicated, and rushing to conclusions will not help. Going over everything properly is the only way to understand what is happening. Afterward, they recall the moment when Sujin, already turned into a zombie, bit Ywin. By all known rules of the infection, he should have changed as well, yet he stands there completely unaffected. Ywin's blood might be the cure to stop the infection. The idea seems impossible, but given the situation, it can't be ignored. When Sujin, already turned into an infected, bit him, his blood somehow entered her mouth. Instead of making things worse, it cured her almost instantly. Normally, a virus shouldn't be neutralized that quickly, but the results speak for themselves. If this theory holds, it would also explain why the infected never attacked him. It's not just immunity. His blood itself acts as a vaccine. Even the smallest amount is enough to reverse the infection. This means Ywin isn't just resistant to the virus. He might be the only person capable of stopping it. His blood could hold the cure the world desperately needs. If the infected can really be cured, then his parents weren't completely gone. That means they were still human, and there was a chance to save them. This thought is shocking, and Ywin starts to rethink everything he has done since waking up, and even while traveling here. He has defeated so many infected without stopping to think. Moreover, the thought hits him that he wasn't just trying to survive, but he had been ending lives that might have been saved. Gitta reminds him that he keeps many others safe, and there is no other way. Surviving means making tough choices, no matter how difficult they are. Since everything began, they meet all kinds of people. Some are worse than the infected. Not every monster is a zombie. Some are humans who lose their kindness, proving that the real danger is not just the virus, but people themselves. No one can judge Ywin for his actions, because he never harms anyone. If anything, he protects them. Rather than just discussing, they decide to confirm the truth. A suggestive question comes up, to test what Ywin has become, and the best way to do this is by making his presence known. They plan to feature him on a radio broadcast that night. This will reveal whether he truly holds the key to a cure, or if something else lies beneath his existence. Ywin feels unsure about the idea of being on a live radio broadcast. The thought of speaking to so many people makes him hesitate. Later, he connects with Gina on a video call and explains the situation, how they want him to talk on radio. He fears he isn't as special as they believe and worries about raising false hope. However, Gina assures him, in this world, no one is more remarkable than you. Afterward, she suggests to him that Ywin's sister might be listening to the broadcast, encouraging him to do his best. He appreciates the support and thanks them. Realizing he needs to save his battery, he promises to talk later. But before hanging up, he asks Gina to send his regards to her parents. After the call, Sujin teases him, asking if that was his girlfriend, to which he quickly denies it. But the other person isn't convinced, pointing out that she sounded like she thinks he's really special. Afterward, Gitta joins in, making him even more embarrassed, and teases Ywin, saying even Gina's parents already believe they're a couple, so there's no point in denying it. Son Jinchial asks, Ywin, did you get some rest? Everything is set up, and it's time to prepare. Ywin hesitates, worried about messing up during the live broadcast. Sir, he reassures him, laughing, mistakes don't really matter in times like these. Afterwards, the radio host, Son Jinchial, begins the broadcast. I acknowledge the many messages of support and concern from listeners. Despite the scarcity of data and electricity, people still take the time to reach out, and I express gratitude for their kindness. To give back, I announce a special guest, the first ever on the show. I introduce the person everyone has been most curious about, the one who has given people hope in these dark times, the mysterious figure known as the Motorcycle Man. Kong Ywin is finally on air. Afterwards, the radio host asks Kong Ywin to introduce himself to the listeners. Ywin is nervous but determined. He hesitates before speaking. My name is Kong Ywin, and I am 8 years old. I work as a funeral mortician. Moreover, the host then mentions that many reports about Ywin have been received. While some details need verification, one question stands out as the most important. Is it true that the infected do not attack you? After a brief pause, Ywin confirms that the reports are indeed true. The infected neither bite nor attack me. They barely acknowledge my presence. Afterward, the host admits that it sounds unbelievable and that he struggled to accept it at first. However, after witnessing it himself multiple times, he can no longer deny the truth. The host then mentions reports suggesting Ywin has been traveling east. Do you have a specific destination? Ywin confirms that he does. I'm heading to Yangyang, in Gangwon province, where my family is located, hoping to reunite with them, despite the dangers along the way. Afterwards, the host acknowledges that Yangyang is quite far. I wonder if any listeners are there. Suddenly, a report comes in from a listener in Sacho, a nearby area. The unexpected message catches everyone's attention. The host reveals that the listener also evacuated from Yangyang to Sacho. According to them, the military has already passed through Yangyang, leaving nothing behind. Ywin processes the news, realizing that his journey might have been for nothing, and that his family's fate remains uncertain. Ywin is trying to process the possibility that Yangyang might be completely gone. Gidu, just as alarmed, questions, did the military actually destroy the entire area? Afterwards, the host steps in to provide clarification. According to available reports, the military did take action in Yangyang. However, the phrase, "nothing left," is unclear. It could mean there are no survivors, or it might only refer to the infected being eliminated. The uncertainty leaves Ywin anxious. He is unsure if his family is still alive, or if he has been chasing a lost cause. Afterwards, the host emphasizes the need to verify the claims before making any assumptions. Any additional details about the situation in Yangyang would help clarify what really happened. The producer confirms that the military acted when the crisis first broke out, immediately declaring martial law. However, after that initial response, their movements have been limited. In fact, reports suggest they are quickly withdrawing from metropolitan areas, leading to traffic restrictions and even more disorder. Yet, Yangyang's case might be different, suggesting something unusual happened there compared to the rest of the country. The host suggests that the military might have evacuated the survivors in Yangyang, placing them in a safer situation. Moreover, he encourages Ywin to hold on to hope. Afterwards, Ywin reflects on his sister's love for the radio since childhood. They always listened together, finding comfort in its presence. She believed it made their quiet home feel more alive and less lonely. If she is safe, there's no doubt she is listening to this broadcast right now, just as she always did before everything changed. Ywin remains determined, stating that no matter what has happened to Yangyang, it doesn't change his goal. He's going there to find his sister. Moreover, if she's listening to the broadcast, he wants her to stay strong and hold on a little longer, and promises that he will come for her no matter what. The host acknowledges Ywin's resolve and thanks him for his efforts. The host shares that many listeners have sent supportive messages, thanking Ywin for giving them courage. Afterwards, Gidu teases him and says he was nervous at first, but adjusted quickly, joking that he might have chosen the wrong career. Ywin quickly denies it, to which Gidu advises him to get used to broadcasting because once things settle, the media will want to interview him. He might even become a global star. Afterwards, the lady hesitates before asking a question, but the host encourages her to speak. She wonders why he didn't mention her cure during the broadcast, believing it could have given listeners hope. The host admits he left it out for Ywin's sake. If people knew his blood could heal the infected, they might just see him as a hero or savior. While that sounds ideal, things might not be so simple, because the weight of such a thing could bring unexpected consequences, ones Ywin might not be ready to face. Moreover, the host explains that if the truth about Ywin's blood spreads, he might not be seen as just a hero, but as a resource. Under the guise of helping humanity, he could end up as nothing more than a test subject. Another person agrees, acknowledging the possibility and urging Ywin to keep his secret. With the current situation, trusting the military or the government isn't an option. The priority should be rescuing his sister. Ywin understands and decides to check the broadcasting station more thoroughly. Before he leaves, Gidu hands him a cleaned weapon. Ywin hesitates, wondering if he really needs to take the weapon for a quick look. But Gidu insists, saying he should take it just in case. He understands Ywin's feelings, but warns him not to lower his guard. The more he does, the more vulnerable he becomes. Right now, he has every right to be selfish until he saves his sister. Ywin takes the advice to heart and thanks him before heading out, determined to continue his search. Gidu is surprised by the statement. He explains that Ywin is kind, but lacks strong determination. At just 28, he still has many challenges ahead. While his kindness is a strength, it can also be a weakness in a world like this. Moreover, a gentle heart can break long before the body does. That's why Gidu's presence is so important. Every time Ywin starts to lose hope, Gidu is the one who helps him keep going. Afterwards, the host agrees that Ywin only grows stronger because of the support around him. Without help, reaching Yangyang would be impossible, to which Gidu doesn't hesitate to say that he will assist Ywin, not just because he is an important story, but also because he once helped him. Sujin nearby hesitates before speaking. Gidu confirms that he is traveling with Ywin, to which the lady expresses her interest in joining. Gido wasn't expecting this request and feels surprised by the sudden decision. Afterwards, Gido hesitates for a moment before addressing Sujin's request. Traveling together isn't a simple decision, and he wonders if she has any personal connection to Yang. To which Sujin explains that she was shocked when she heard about Yang's situation on the radio. The military unit that moved through the area isn't just any group to her. Her father is the commander of the 4th Armored Brigade stationed there. Before proceeding further into the story, let's take a glimpse into our boy's past. There we see an elderly woman who goes by the name L. Right now, she feels guilty about accepting help and money. Ywin's sister is willing to offer, but Ywin's sister gently reassures her that it's no burden, just a little kindness. She hopes this woman wholeheartedly has a nice meal with her grandkids, and skipping meals isn't an option. Elle thanks her endlessly for this. A few moments later, given her struggles to pay for lunch, Ywin asks his sister why she gave the money away. She just brushes it off, saying she's got enough cash to buy an old lady lunch. She also mentions Elle climbs this hill every week or so to pick up trash and papers, even though it's kind of pointless, but she does it anyway. That's what she calls a sense of true, unseen goodwill, the mere reasons that hold humanity together. This leads her to dream that one day Ywin will carry the same goodwill forward, so she asks if he will. Ending the trip to memory lane, alone on a bench, lost in thoughts of the past, he stares at his last messages to Big Sister with unwinding sadness. Later on, Gido tends to ask if Miss Sujin's father is the deputy commander of the 4th Armored Brigade. Sujin reveals that he is Colonel Choi Young-chol, previously stationed in Chorwon, but reassigned to Yanyang last year. Also, her family moved to Yanyang, but she stayed in Seoul for work. Gido considers that her whole world flipped upside down in just a week with no prior notice. Plus, he thinks this woman feels a sense of safety with Ywin and probably desires to come along with them. Just then, his mind did a U-turn. Colonel Choi Young-chol, the name's quite familiar, and he served in Chorwon until last year. Something clicks in his mind. Meanwhile, Jincheol thinks about letting Sujin tag along, which isn't so bad considering the military taking control over Yanyang. He believes that it's likely to be the 4th Armored Brigade unit, and that unit is definitely gatekeeping that area. No civilians allowed, but in Miss Sujin's case, this civilian has direct links to the executive family of the deputy commander, which makes it a whole different story. Not only that, Gino concludes that there isn't any safe place but the military base in moments like these. Even knowing their path to Yanyang isn't a piece of cake, it requires immense planning to get past the pack of the infected. It could take longer than expected. However, the option to leave still sounds better than staying behind and doing nothing. Sujin breaks the silence, expressing her desire to reunite with her family. Thus, they decide to discuss the matters further once Ywin returns. Moving on, Ywin hears out Sujin's case, asking if she is coming with them. He doesn't have any problem with her tagging along, knowing her family is in Yanyang. Gido hits Ywin with a reality check, telling the dude that they weren't going to Yanyang for vacation. Gulping down rice balls, Ywin knows the risks are real, but in times like these, family comes first, no doubt. Also, he casually mentions traveling to Yanyang because of his sister. That's something Sujin finds relatable, hoping not to be a burden for them. Further along, so they ask Jincheol what's next. He says now that he's got some hope, he's going to keep broadcasting from here. With that in mind, he asks them if they can share any information they pick up on the way to Yanyang. Furthermore, Jincheol mentions getting reports from all over the country, but intel on military bases is rare. Plus, barely anyone is making long-distance trips like they are. Jincheol points out that places like Seoul and the metro area are basically shut down. He figures if the military or government is still up and running, they've probably shifted their bases out to the provinces. That's why Jincheol thinks broadcasting their journey to Yanyang as a live documentary would mean a lot to his surviving listeners. He hopes Ywin can rescue his sister and reunite with her. Meanwhile, he plans to stay put and do his part. Ywin gives him a small smile, promising to return for him afterward. Jido restocks Jincheol's food supply for at least a month. Jincheol worries it's risky to give away their supplies before heading to Yanyang, but Jido reassures him they'll hit a supermarket to restock. Plus, Ywin confirms the 8th floor is clear of zombies, so they're not trapped anymore. Jincheol thanks Ywin for saving him in more ways than one. He dreams of a day they can broadcast together again, and next time, with his sister too, putting their hands together in a huddle. They wish each other good luck before parting ways. After that, Jincheol watches the trio walk away, leaving him with nothing but hope. Once our boy and his friends are out, he fires up his motorbike, leading the way. As Jaido and Sujin settle into the car, with engines roaring, they hit the road at full speed. Jaido keeps close behind, following Ywin's lead. He vows to bring Nuna back this time. With the door jammed by the pile of junk, Nuna's daughter sleeps peacefully. She softly tells her to hang in there a bit longer, telling her that Uncle Ywin is coming to get them soon. Meanwhile, our trio's journey hits a snag when they find the highway completely jam-packed with the wreckage of abandoned cars. Even if they try, they can't even squeeze the bike through all the junk blocking their way. Jaido had already expected that their journey to Yangyang wouldn't be a walk in the park, but he hadn't accounted for this much stuff. As far as he's concerned, they might have to take a much longer detour than he initially thought. Sujin takes a look at the map in her hand and suggests taking Route 86. She's confident they won't encounter this level of wreckage there. Jaido finds her idea doable, so he quickly updates Ywin about the national road they're about to take. But it seems like Ywin's mind is already occupied with troubling thoughts. The sight of a family lying dead in front of him makes his heart sink, but he shakes off the feeling and responds to his friend. A while later, they arrived at Nam Yangju Station. There, they encountered a few zombies, which the trio easily took down with their combined efforts. Afterward, they sat back to prepare some food. Just like that, night fell, and they took shelter in their car. Ywin stared at his phone. He'd already sent countless texts to his sister, but there was still no response. Morning arrived, and the path they were following led to a dead end. There were plenty of roads they could take, but finding one that actually led to Yangyang was a whole different problem. Filtering out a safer route was even trickier. Eventually, they decided to take a short break here before moving on. The place was pretty secluded and peaceful, so it shouldn't be too risky. After all, they've been exhausting themselves trying to figure out the safest route. A little breather to recharge was well-deserved. Sujin took this opportunity to head into the thick woods to do her business. As she disappeared into the greenery, Gidu wasn't sure if she should be roaming around like this. Then again, they couldn't exactly follow her either. All they could do was hope she stayed safe, since the direction she took only led to an abandoned mountain. Still, it couldn't be easy for a woman to keep up with them, especially since they'd been rushing ahead without rest or time to regroup. She must be exhausted trying to make sure she wasn't slowing them down. It looked like she was indeed drained for being the only woman tagging along with the boys. But at the end of the day, she couldn't complain since she was the one who insisted on coming along. If only he could ask Ywin to stand guard while she did her thing, but that's not an option. Her worst fear came true when a guy fully equipped from head to toe suddenly stood behind her, barrel pointed right at her. A scream echoed through the forest, so loud that Gidu and Ywin immediately went on high alert. Ywin didn't hesitate for even a second and bolted like a flash toward the source of that distressing scream as he shouted her name, expecting her to respond. He stumbled upon the same soldier-looking guy who had Sujin terrified. The dude demanded that Ywin drop his weapon since there was no room for risks. Our boy dropped his bat without a second thought. The soldier then questioned Ywin about his identity and the reason for their presence here. Ywin, on the other hand, was also trying to figure out who this guy was. It's obvious he's a survivor, but something felt off. Where did he even get that gun? He didn't seem like a legit military guy. Not wanting to risk Sujin's life, Ywin simply raised his hands in the air and told the guy that she's his partner. The only reason he's here is that he followed her scream. The fake soldier then demands to know why Ywin and his friend are in the mountains. There's absolutely nothing out here, he says. Ywin, deciding to be honest, explains their mission. We're trying to reach Yangyang and find my family, he says. But we got lost. We ended up wandering around all day and stopped here to take a breather. The place looked harmless, so we had no reason to move on without getting some rest. Finally, the fake soldier lowers his gun and apologizes for causing a panic. It was rude of me to act that way, he acknowledges. I sensed movement in an empty mountain and mistook you for infected. He then helps the distressed Sujin get back on her feet. At last, he pulls off his helmet and introduces himself. I'm Jang Tahan, he says, as a gesture of goodwill. I apologize once again for scaring you. Ywin, in turn, returns the polite gesture by introducing himself. It looks like Gidu has also arrived in the area, as they can clearly hear him calling Ywin out. Hearing another person approach, Jang Tahan immediately asks, "How many of you are there?" Ywin flashes 3 fingers in response. Jang Tahan then suddenly invites them to come with him. Seeing how exhausted you are, the place I'm currently staying at isn't exactly comfortable. but it's still better than sleeping outside. If nothing else, there are plenty of extra rooms to accommodate everyone. That's all for today. For the next part, make sure to subscribe my channel Fire Recap. And you don't forget to share and like the video. I am out.